Yo, Drew.
Hey, Brad.
Hey, man. So you know how Manny Diaz is supposed to be this awesome defensive coach when they hired him down in Miami?
I knew he had a history as a defense coordinator. Yes.
So obviously they got their ass kicked by North Carolina, 62-26, and 62 is not like the top line number everybody's going to take away, right?
Yeah, no, that's not a good defensive number.
But I'm going to throw you a hypothetical. Not even a hypothetical. Would you rather be the team that gave up 778 total yards or the team that gave up two different rushers of over 200 yards?
I'm gonna lean more towards not giving up the 700 yards.
Okay, but if you're Manny Diaz, you can have both.
You know, Early, sometimes them football boosters will provide your family with a car or even house if you keep nice and quiet about it. They're gonna do what now?
Welcome to the place where if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying is a way of life.
Just keep it down home, cuz.
Where degenerate gamblers can congregate in peace.
Money, yeah. Money, yeah.
Where screaming at 20-year-old kids on TV is just another Saturday.
Every fiber in your bone, and you take it and you beat the piss out of them. I'm talking about beat the piss out of them. Let's go whip their ass. Let's go.
Where game days don't end until the Rainbow Warriors say so.
Look out, Purdy. He is really good. What is he doing? What is Brock Purdy doing? Outside of maybe the first quarter.
They are the bagmen that Danny Sheridan never found.
I went to him with a strong-ass offer.
And it all comes to you with a splash of bourbon on the side. Woo! This is the Friends of the Program podcast.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome in to a championship week edition of Friends of the Program. I'm Brad, he's Drew, as we welcome you in, and thanks so much for joining us. It's been a hell of a weekend, especially for us, considering, well, if you've been around all year, you know we're both Auburn grads. We're going to get well into the Gus Malzahn firing head coach search situation. Frankly, listen to the first 10 or 15 minutes of the show if you want overall analysis of the season and the rest last week, championship weekend, things of that nature. I'm just going to be honest with you straight up here. The last 30 to 45 minutes, we're going to dive deep into the biggest head coaching job that's open. That's not me just saying that. Just look at all-time wins, look at money, things like that. Auburn's the biggest head coaching
program in the last 30 years.
Yeah, team that won played for 2 national titles in the last decade. And folks, Drew and I both know people. It's been wild behind the scenes. And I just want to start giving people a glimpse. If you're not familiar with an SEC head coaching search, what the hell is going on right now? Because it's fascinating.
Not just an SEC coaching search, but people in the Auburn. SEC would go, oh, yeah, an Auburn coaching search? You're just begging for trouble.
It's a nightmare. Don't forget, you can always follow us on Twitter real quick at FOT Podcast. Same for Instagram at FOT Podcast. Go search us on YouTube, Friends of the Program, and do the same for iTunes and Spotify. Follow, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Drew, before we get into everything, how are you doing, sir? And what are you drinking?
A little bit sleep deprived. I actually completely forgot about drinking. I haven't had time.
I haven't stopped this week.
I mean, I can't get the good stuff because, I don't know what's. I'll tell you what. Went on Sunday, which I thought was going to be a good day. Which I thought was the beginning of good times. I actually cracked open this guy, which is my very old Saint Nick. Delicious, because I thought, and it still might, God knows, be a turnaround for what Auburn football thinks they are or wants to be. But very delicious, very smooth, just a fantastic bottle. That's the most expensive bottle I have. It's 12-year bourbon, a very old Saint Nick. So
nice.
Happy holidays, Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa to those that celebrate. And since it's very old Saint Nick, I feel like that's.
I'm just on beer tonight because it was this or moonshine, depending on how the week's been going.
Yeah.
Jeez. But again, folks, we'll get into that here in a few because I'm telling you, it has been wild what the hell's been going on the plains for the last few days. But we're going to start with a quick look back at last week. Really just want to talk about one or two games because overall the week was kind of boring again. Not a whole lot out there. And it was very stale until Florida decided to throw a shoe.
No joke.
And then just, what the hell? You gave up any kind of a shot at a playoff. And you weren't beating Alabama this week anyway, so fine. But you theoretically had a shot to sneak into the playoffs this week until you threw a shoe. Florida. And my bigger problem with that isn't even that he threw a shoe. Why was Florida in that situation to begin with against a bad LSU football team?
Well, I think hubris finally got Dan Mullen, to be completely honest. ESPN, Sean McDonough, just to let you know how sleep deprived I am. Almost called him Todd Pettengill, but it's Todd Blackledge on the call at ESPN. Made sure that you knew that Kyle Pitts probably, I can say it now officially, the best player on Florida's team, bar none. Kyle Trask is a good quarterback in a really nice system right now. I think he's going to be a good NFL quarterback. I wouldn't mind seeing my Atlanta Falcons take him in the second-ish round.
He'll be a good second round's way too high for Trask.
Probably so. He's not injured. He's just not. He's a little bit banged. So we're going to sit him down and make sure he's okay for Alabama, just in case Alabama's not having the best day. Maybe Mac Jones wakes up with a scratchy nose, or Devonta Smith, wakes up and his ankle is just not feeling quite right, and he drops the ball or five.
Najee 50 times, it'll be fine.
Exactly. So I think hubris played a little bit into Florida not. Florida just being a little bit off. But however, so I don't give, I guess you could say that the playoff committee gave them a pass by only dropping them one spot with the loss. However, I would drop them a couple more just because of discipline, because if the Florida player, I don't even know his name, he doesn't need to be said. We were all 18, and I know I've made my fair share of mistakes.
Don't we just call him Random Task? He throws
a
shoe. Who throws a shoe? Honestly,
who throws a shoe?
I'm just calling that guy Random Task from now on.
That's actually a really good call.
So he is.
That's a solid call.
If there was the XFL, you could put him on the back of the jersey like "He Hate Me." It'd be amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I would make that jersey if that was like XFL style, or if you could in college do like your own names, the customized jerseys like you can for pro teams.
Well, you can sort of now. I've saw somebody called Freedom. I've seen somebody called Equality. North Carolina was big on that, which kudos to the NCAA for allowing that to happen. But yeah, no, he needs to just be called Random Task.
Yeah.
So if he throws it to the sideline nearest him, he throws it to LSU because I don't know whose shoe this is.
There you go.
Let me just get it out of the way. Instead, he chucks it down even further into the defensive backfield, therefore causing a delay because now an LSU player doesn't have a shoe and it's 30 yards downfield. Thanks SEC refs for finally doing something right. And telling me exactly how far Random Task can throw a shoe.
I mean, better arm, him or Vanderbilt's quarterback?
Oh. It's sad that I have to think about that, especially after watching that Vanderbilt-Tennessee game because I just didn't care about anything else.
How sad was your day Saturday?
It was pretty dismal. It was very rainy here and cold. Yeah, no, it was not the best.
Chose to watch Vanderbilt.
Well, I mean, look at the other games that were on at that time. Army-Navy wasn't something that I watched the very beginning of, and then after that I was like, eh. And Georgia, Missouri, and Alabama, Arkansas wasn't good either. Anywho, So getting back to the LSU game, so if he even tosses it towards the LSU huddle, it's better than tossing it 30 yards down the field. So I penalize him on discipline, if nothing else. But I did like Dan Mullen's response in the postgame of, well, I'm not sure that that's worth a penalty. I need to look at the play, but I pay attention to everything that's happening on the field. And then he saw the play and he was like, yeah, that's not good. That wasn't. Yeah.
That press conference was one of the funniest things unintentionally that I have seen in a long time. Post-game presser for Dan Mullen. You could just see on his face, he's going, oh, God, I'm going to catch so much hell for this loss. And he couldn't understand how they lost the game. And he was getting peppered by the media. Like, what the hell just happened? And he had zero answer for it. And it wasn't eloquent answers. It wasn't trying to be like, well, we're going to try to get better and move on to Bama next week and, so a championship to play for. You could have pivoted. None of that. Just none of that. They're going to get waxed by Bama, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. But I still come back to the fact of that is a rivalry game. Not a traditional one. LSU, Florida, if you go back 50, 60 years, doesn't exist.
Yeah, no.
But the last 20 to 25 years since they started doing permanent cross-division rivals and LSU, Florida became that, those two fan bases simply do not like each other.
No.
They do not like each other. And there's a lot of little things that have happened over the last few years that have caused more and more animosity in that rivalry.
Strife.
You have to be ready to play that football game. I don't care if you got Bama next week. Well, you got to be ready to play that.
Yeah.
LSU's bad. There's no excuse. Half of LSU's team opted out.
And Derek Stingley was not playing.
No. It's a bad football team.
At one point after the targeting injection, I think LSU's DB's situation was 3, 4, and 5. And you're a passing team?
It was, yeah. I have no excuses for Dan Mullen there. Just none.
No.
But that's that is a typical Dan Mullen loss because it's going to happen about once a year where you just shake your head and go, what just happened? How did you lose to that team?
It's questionable, too, because Dan Mullen coached at Mississippi State.
Mm-hmm.
You would think after getting, I don't know the record that he had at State against LSU. I know it wasn't good.
Won a couple of times, though.
I mean, maybe under Dak.
No, he won 2 or 3 times because he won at least once or twice in Death Valley for sure.
Okay. Yeah, I do remember the Dak game in Death Valley where they beat the brakes off of them.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a whoa, who is this team? But still, you got the brakes beat off of you by some good Les Miles teams also during that time. You would think that when those helmets roll out, you'd want to kind of get a little bit of them. I get that it was the traditional sandwich game and yada yada.
That's an excuse.
It is. It absolutely is. It's the Tommy Tuberville excuse of what's going to happen.
I see that game. And Florida, to me, LSU Florida has become what mid-2000s Auburn LSU was. Just every year it's something insane.
Yeah.
But it's a good football game. It's a good football game every year.
It's my second favorite non-Auburn series in the SEC. The Egg Bowl, nothing will ever take away from the Egg Bowl, period.
Which was way too calm this year, by the way. That was...
Well, but LSU Florida picked up for me.
Yeah.
It picked it up. Which for 2020, that's fine. As long as I get one of them, that's fine. I'm good. But no, you're absolutely right. This series really was born in 1996 or 97 when LSU beat number 1 Florida in Death Valley. I still remember watching that game when I was a kid. And then it just sort of picked up from there. A couple of games in the 80s, but
yeah, but I mean, it really caught steam in the 2000s when both teams are playing for national titles consistently.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And since then, it's just gotten rough. All right, we're going to move off that game quickly. Anything else from last week really catch you? The only thing I saw, honestly, that kind of caught my eye was the Shane Beamer hire at USC.
Yeah, at USCE.
Yeah, I should say South Carolina. Sorry,
yeah.
Southern boy in me. I always hate the argument from a lot of SEC homers that one thing I will say about Southeastern Conference fans, they don't watch much football outside of the SEC.
No.
They're kind of lazy, and they and I'm generalizing here because there are others that don't, but there's this school of thought among a lot of folks that if you haven't coached at a school before as a head coach, you're obviously not qualified to coach at my school here in the SEC. My argument against that is always Bob Stoops, Kirby Smart, Dabo Swinney. None of them had head coaching experience before they took the Oklahoma, Georgia, Clemson jobs, respectively. None of them.
None of them.
Never coached it down as a head coach of football in the college level. We all know what they've done. I think the Beamer hire is interesting. It's an upside hire. I like the fact that he's coming from the Oklahoma system.
Mm-hmm.
Because they obviously put out dynamic offenses. I kind of like the fact that he can lean on his dad for program advice and how to run a program, what the ins and outs are, what you got to know on, without having his dad oversee everything, right? Do I think it's an impact hire? Too early to tell. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, and this is something that I've been telling a lot of people that I've talked to this week. Regardless of who the hire is, even Nick Saban. Nick Saban's a great G word, capital G, great start. If you were starting a football program and you hired him. However, it comes down to who's his OC, who's his DC, and who are the assistants after that. It's not about even if you hire. I've heard a lot of people talking about who are just to jump to the pros. The Falcons need to hire Joe Brady because he's a young, energetic offensive coach. No, they don't. They don't have to. They don't have to get an offensive coach even. What they need to do is find somebody who can pick a good offensive coach.
Nick Saban will tell you he is not the best coach.
No.
He flat told Mal Moore this when they hired him. He said, "You are hiring the most relentless recruiter you will find. No one will out-recruit me.
Yes.
But I'm not the best game day coach." He's flat out said that. And he's on record. You can go look it up.
Yep. And I completely agree with him because sometimes his X's and O's go back to the 2013 Iron Bowl against Auburn.
Go back to Clemson a couple of years ago.
Exactly.
The in-game decision of that fake field goal.
When the talent is equal, the X's and O's come out, and there are sometimes they're absolutely right and good on them. But there are some times where he does things in a game. I mean,
yeah, he gets in a pressure situation, and he tends to choke sometimes.
I've told this to some of my Georgia friends. If Auburn doesn't beat Alabama in 2017 and Alabama just wins the game, Georgia wins the national championship. And they always look at me and go, I don't understand what you're talking about. What happened in the 2017 Iron Bowl, Brad?
Auburn won by a game by 12. Jalen Hurts was hurt coming. Or Jalen Hurts got hurt going to that game, didn't he?
He was a little bit.
He was a little banged up.
He was a little bit banged. A little bit banged
up. But that's actually a little bit of a dominating win for Auburn. But it's the biggest win for Auburn in 50-plus years in that series.
Since 1969.
We're talking about a 12-point win. It wasn't much.
Yes. No, it wasn't much. But it was the largest since 1969.
I mean, there were 8 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, and I wasn't concerned that Auburn was losing that football game.
Correct. The reason why is because he did not pull Jalen Hurts when Jalen wasn't having his best game.
Yep.
What happened in the half of the national championship game, Brad?
They changed over. Well, I didn't watch the game, but I do know that they.
No, you know what happened. Though.
I know.
Tua comes in, saves
Leads
the
them
day,
back.
leads them back, and they score in overtime to on 2nd and 26 or whatever it was, and they get the win. So if that doesn't happen, and Nick doesn't learn from his mistake in Auburn, Georgia wins. And I'll stand by that statement until the day I die.
I don't understand the logic there, because then Georgia would have played Bama the very next week
for
the SEC title.
Now, that is true. I hadn't factored that in. So, okay, that could have changed. But still, he learned from his mistake in Auburn of not changing over and decided to change over.
Yeah.
So it shows that adaptation. But at the same time, you're absolutely right. It's who do you have under your staff or under your head at your staff? Because those are your X's and O's guys. It wasn't that Will Muschamp hired Mike Bobo. It was that he couldn't get a defense working to stop anybody or couldn't recruit to get players that could stop anybody except for Gus Malzahn. But so I will hold my. I think you kind of swayed me because at first I went, I don't know about this. He's never really been a long-time coordinator, much less a head coach. But if he goes out and gets solid X's and O's coaches and gets recruiters that can bring talent in, put up a fence and get their share of talent in South Carolina and in Georgia and in North Carolina.
It doesn't bother me. I watched a 34-year-old guy coaching the Super Bowl 2 years ago. Like the age of a head coach does not.
Yeah. No. And it's not the age of Shane Beamer that gives me pause. It's more the upper level management part of coaching that makes me go.
I guess.
I mean, I'm willing to watch. And
Lincoln Riley's showing it can be done in Oklahoma too, though.
Absolutely.
It's just I always hate that argument. It has to be. No. I don't agree with that. It doesn't have to be a head coach. No. 2 other jobs opened up that I want to hit really quick. Just quick leader in the clubhouse. Who you think it is? Arizona fires Kevin Sumlin after that disaster of an experiment. Man, has he anyone? He fell from grace so quickly as far as what he did at Houston. Not even less than a decade ago.
Yeah.
Old career now at A&M, gone. Now he's a few years in Arizona, gone. After losing 70-7 to your arch rival.
Not that it's a good thing either way, but just not looking anywhere around interested in the game.
Not at all. And then Lovie Smith gone at Illinois. I thought that might play out longer. Illinois, I didn't think would pull the trigger there at fast.
That was a little bit surprising.
Yeah, I couldn't tell if that was more of a mutual thing or if Illinois is just making a move. I have an idea, maybe of a couple of guys Illinois would look at and think about. The problem you're going to have in Illinois is they're not going to spend money. Yeah. So, names like Luke Fickell are getting thrown around. Well, he's already making $3.2 million a year in Cincinnati. Like, Illinois is not throwing that kind of money around. It's just not who they are. So I think you're looking at, something maybe up in Buffalo. Their head coach, he was at Wisconsin Whitewater, won several titles at the D3 level, done pretty well since going over to Buffalo. I think that's the kind of level Illinois is going to look at. Arizona's interesting because they went and hired Sumlin, so they will throw a little bit of money around on occasion. He wasn't too cheap. Is that a soft landing spot for Gus?
It could be.
Or west.
I personally, just from people that I've talked to that know Gus and everything like that, wouldn't be shocked if Gus sits out a season, just recharges. Again, everybody wants to toss around $21 million, and he doesn't have to coach. he doesn't get $21 million. He's getting 10.6 or 7, somewhere around there right now. And then over the next 4 years, he gets about 2.7, whatever that breakup is. So he, again, I know you're like, well, it's still $10 million. Yeah, you're absolutely right. But he's got he's got family, kids. He hadn't seen them since.
Or if Hugh Freeze leaves for a job soon, does he go to Liberty and meet up with Malik Willis again, who he originally recruited?
Perhaps. I've heard that there's already somebody in waiting.
Yeah, I've heard the Art Briles name, but I've also heard the Art Briles name for the OC at Texas Tech.
Yeah, I've also heard that too. But the other thing that I would be surprised if Hugh Freeze moves this year, to be completely honest, because he's wanting it.
Unless Tennessee opens. I think unless Tennessee opens, that changes the game.
I think Birmingham is going to block that.
Oh, okay.
From happening. I am under the impression that it is still a little bit too early, if ever, that Hugh Freeze makes it back into the SEC from conversations that I've had.
Gotcha. All right. So quickly, let's talk about picks coming up so we can get deep into this crazy ass Gus Malzahn Auburn hiring situation over the last few days. We both went 0-5 last week. We told you it was a bad week anyway. Drew is now 37-30-1 on the year. I am 35-32-1 against the spread. My upset special did hit, as Memphis, as a 5-point underdog, came up with a 30-27 victory. We are doing extended picks this week. I think we got 7 games, all conference title game edition of our picks. It's the final week of picks as well. This is a winner gets the bottle of bourbon of the other's choice. Mm-hmm. Right now, Drew is. I might have to take some shots here to have a chance. We start, ironically, in the Pac-12 because it's Friday night.
Yeah.
Oregon in this game because Washington had to bug out due to COVID issues. So Oregon found out Monday, I think, or Tuesday.
It was Monday.
Okay, Monday that they're playing in this football game.
10 a.m. or so.
And that's with all kinds of rumors swirling in Oregon that we'll get to in a minute. They're going to play number 13 USC, who fought their ass off last week to get by UCLA in the battle for the bell. Mm-hmm. USC is a 3-point favorite in this game, Drew. Where are you going?
I'm going to have to go with USC. I think that USC's been playing really good football. I think they beat a good UCLA team a few weeks ago. And with all the opt-outs for Oregon, I gave Mario Cristobal a pass this year with all those sit-outs and
he's had a
guys. I mean, he's had a rough go of it. And that's not just me sandbagging, because you still should beat Oregon State. You still should beat a Pad Cal team. But this is the Pac-12 championship that I think we all expected to see.
Just
maybe
not this way.
Just not this way. But I think that even though they still found out early in the week, and that can help. It's still only a 4-day turnaround, really, for Oregon to get ramped up to play a game, which is still plenty of time. But after hearing from a lot of college football players from around the country, Boston College has already opted out of a bowl game. Everybody's just exhausted.
Virginia Tech too.
Yeah, Virginia Tech too. Even though Oregon's only played 5 games, that's still fighting to try and get those games to actually even happen.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take USC. They're the home team. They're the undefeated team. They're on the roll. And plus, with everything going on in Eugene right now, I just feel like this is USC.
I am I need to make up ground here, so I'm going to take Oregon.
Sure.
This also kind of with everything happening and sneaking their way into this game. I don't know why, but this just feels, for whatever reason, like the Ducks are going to come through. I don't have a football reason for this to happen other than there's a scheduled meeting with the Board of Trustees happening Thursday at Oregon, supposedly to talk about the football coach contract. Again, we'll get into all that in a minute.
Yep.
But because Mario Cristobal plays heavily into our conversation about Auburn here in a minute. I got Oregon here. I think they'll cover the 3 points. I think
it's not a bad pick.
No.
Yeah, it's not a bad pick at all.
I don't remember the last time USC played a big game. I know Oregon won it last year.
Yeah.
So
probably about 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, so I think that experience could help out here a bit too.
Sure.
All right, we go to the Big Ten now. Number 14, Northwestern. Somehow, some way, they're still ranked 14th, and I guess somebody has to be, but I don't understand that one. They are 20.5-point underdogs to number 4, Ohio State. I think you and I are both on the same page here that Ohio State's going to wax them, and this number is not even remotely large enough.
Nope, it's not enough.
Okay.
Not enough.
We'll move on. The only thing I want to say about Ohio State real fast, if the committee holds and everything stays as it is, and I don't think it will because Clemson and Notre Dame have to play each other this week, God, Bama, Ohio State for the first round would be unbelievable to watch.
Yes, it would.
Holy crap.
After seeing the polls this week, I'm hoping for a Clemson 1-point win because then that'll flip 2 and 3, and then we just get a rematch of that again.
I don't think they'd want that, though.
I don't think they would, but that's what I want. Because I want to see Bama, Ohio State. I want to see if – because I really do think Ohio State's a good football team.
I do, too.
I really do.
Yeah.
I don't I think they should be 4 right now because they haven't played anybody and they haven't played any games.
I think they're the only team that can beat Bama. I think
so,
the
too.
only one.
I think so, too. And I don't want to see what happened last year where Clemson and Ohio State just death cage match in the Omni on a Saturday night to each other.
Oh, yeah, walking into war games. Somebody's tapping out.
Literally, you watched the Fiesta Bowl from last year. That is old school Dusty Rhodes and Sting going in against the Four Horsemen in war games.
That was good stuff.
Oh, God. That was a great game.
All right. We'll come down to Dallas, where Oklahoma is a 5.5-point favorite to a team that has already beaten them once this year. And here's your on the cusp of the playoff team. Because I think Iowa State, number 6 in the country, I think if they win this game, Drew, and let's say Clemson or Notre Dame blows the other one out.
Sure.
Iowa State's got a legitimate argument, I don't care what Texas A&M does, to jump A&M for that last spot because they would be a conference champion.
They definitely have better wins on their resume, and they would have 2 at that time over Oklahoma. They would have 2.
Their losses to a ranked team. I mean, it's Louisiana, but it's still a ranked football team.
Well, they're 8-2.
Who's playing for a conference championship this week?
Yeah. They're 8-2 with a loss to Oklahoma State. So, but at that time, it was a number 6 Oklahoma State.
I think there's an argument to be made for them to jump A&M if they win this football game.
I could see it. I totally agree with you because what's Texas A&M's best win after Florida?
Is it Auburn?
I'm waiting. Yeah, it is.
Auburn?
It's Auburn.
Oh, God, that's bad.
Well, I mean, let me make Georgia fans feel real good about themselves. What's Georgia's best win?
That's probably Auburn.
Or Missouri.
Yeah. All right, 5.5 points. OU favorite.
I'm actually going to take Iowa State. I think they cover here. I'm getting an itchy trigger finger here. No, I'm not going to make that. That's way too easy. This would be my backup upset special since it is 5.5. If you want, I just like Iowa State's football team. I love Matt Campbell. I wish Auburn were ballsy enough to take him.
Oh, me too. Or at least make a run at him.
But there are too many people that think, no, he's Northerner, so we can't do that. So, anywho,
they're probably burned because the last time we brought somebody from Iowa State. So
that also too, which we'll get into that too. I'm actually going to go to the side and go against my better judgment. I'm going to take Florida State plus the 6.5.
Oh, so we're upset special.
While I'm thinking about it, just so I don't forget it.
Okay.
That's my upset special.
Who are they playing? I don't even know.
I think Florida State is playing good football.
Who are they playing? I don't even know.
They played Duke last week.
No, who do they play this week?
Oh, Wake Forest.
Oh, okay.
In Winston-Salem.
Oh, okay.
So I will take the Noles on the road with a 6.5.
Back to the Big 12 championship game. I'm against you. I'm going to take OU here.
Okay.
Iowa State's never been in this position. OU, annual thing for them, nothing new. They have been playing much better football over the last month.
They have been.
I think they've improved a ton. And this, I just, Iowa State's beat them the last 2 times on the field they've played. Okay. I just think Oklahoma, maybe from mid-October to now, the most improved team in the country.
I can get behind that.
And I think there's an argument to be made for that. And I think OU comes out and covers this. It's only 5.5. You're talking 1 touchdown.
Yeah, you're talking a touchdown.
I'll take Oklahoma here.
Okay.
All right. Speaking of Louisiana and the Raging Cajuns, let's go to another rematch where they go on the road this time. So Conway, South Carolina, to take on Coastal Carolina Chanticleers, number 19 versus number 12. Coastal beat Louisiana in Lafayette earlier this year, where Coastal was a 9.5-point underdog that night. Coastal kicked a long field goal at the buzzer to win. This time, the Shots a 3.5-point favorite at home against Billy Napier's boys.
By the way, just in case you didn't know, the bowl season kicks off Monday in Conway, South Carolina.
Yeah, I'm actually waiting to see what happens with the Montgomery Bowl next Wednesday night, since I'll be in Alabama for that.
Yeah. I don't know how you can pick against Coastal Carolina. They've absolutely run roughshod. That BYU game still probably next to the LSU Florida game, probably the best game of the year. And it still might be the outright.
The Notre Dame Clemson game was great too.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. But I don't know how you can pick against Mullet. So in fact, you can kind of see the Coastal Carolina hat that I have laid out there. So I'm gonna take the Shots. I just like them.
Okay, well, they were 3.5-point favorite. They won by 3 the first time. They win by 3 this time.
Woo.
Louisiana covers. Give me the Cajuns.
Okay.
All right. Rankings wise, biggest game of the week. Probably the most intriguing game of the week, to be quite honest with you, because this is a situation where Clemson loses, they're out of the playoff. If they beat Notre Dame big enough, Notre Dame could be out of the playoff. If this is a tight game, they're both probably in the playoff. Number 3 versus number 2 for the ACC championship. Notre Dame going for their first conference championship in history, because they've never had a chance. It might be their only chance for quite a while. But Clemson enters this game with Trevor Lawrence this time as a 10.5-point favorite.
I don't think it's enough.
Ooh.
I think Dabo is a bit pissed. So give me Tiger, and you can have those points.
I'm with you.
I think Dabo's going to pull it out and show FSU what they missed out on.
Notre Dame needed 2 overtimes to beat them at home without Trevor Lawrence on the field.
Yeah.
Now you're giving me a neutral site game that really isn't that neutral. You're giving me Trevor Lawrence back on the field.
Mm-hmm.
And when was the last time Notre Dame won a game with a championship on the line? Or a playoff game or anything of that nature?
I mean,
Lou Holtz was on the sidelines.
Do I have to go back to 93?
Got to go before that. They did win a championship in 93.
No. I'm just talking about beating FSU in the context versus Catholic.
Yeah.
I mean, last time.
But with anything like a championship or something on the line?
Yeah, you have to go back to 88.
Got to go back to 88. They look completely overmatched a couple of years ago against Clemson in the playoff.
Yeah.
That was 2 years ago. They looked. I mean, we don't even talk about the Bama championship game in 2012. Good God. I have Clemson. I think they win this game by 17, and then there's a legitimate argument of does Notre Dame even make the playoff? That's going to happen in that fourth spot.
I'm thinking that John Swofford's going to tell Dabo, try to get it to 14 and just hover, just so we can get 2 in. Literally, I think that's the play.
For the conference, sure, but
I think Dabo's going to go, we'll do what we can, and then goes out and just goes, full Pornhub on it.
We're going to go quick on this one because I don't think we have much of
Bama
to talk about. Bama minus 17. It's not enough.
I love not enough. Somebody today came up to me and said, man, that line's 17 and a half and it's 75 points. And I said, it's not enough and take me over.
Yeah, it's not enough.
Deadpan.
All right, final game to talk about for the championship weekend. I like this game a lot. It got canceled earlier this year because of COVID issues. Now we're getting for a title game. Number 23, Tulsa at number 9, Cincinnati. Cincinnati's a 14-point favorite. They're at home.
I like, gosh, Tulsa's been playing good football. This is what I'm going to flip over to after Bama goes up by 21.
I'll be on an airplane, so I'm going to miss that snuff film.
Oh, yeah. this
yeah, I know.
I like Cincinnati, but I'm going to take Tulsa and the points. Cincinnati wins for sure, but I think it's more of a 10. Okay. 10 to a 12, maybe.
So I like that play. If I was gambling, I would take Tulsa. Yeah. I need to make up points. I got to go Cincinnati. So
understand.
Finally, my upset special for the week. I'm going to pull a Drew. Give me Rutgers plus 6.5 over Nebraska.
Yeah.
Oh,
and the toilet bowl.
That's a money line toilet bowl play for me, baby.
Yes, sir.
Because I don't like what Nebraska's doing. Just don't like it.
No,
you don't just go into Piscataway, New Jersey, and expect to win.
No, sir. I don't like it.
All right, so those are the picks. That's last week's talk. If you're not interested in Auburn talk when it comes to head coaching searches or just crazy SEC stuff, enjoyed.
I'll see you.
Talk to you soon. Catch us next week before the Christmas episode. We'll talk bowl games and all that good stuff. If you want to hear about some craziness in the SEC and Auburn football coaching searches, settle in, grab yourself a drink because this is about to get interesting.
Yep.
To recap, Auburn won a football game last Saturday night.
They didn't lose a football game Saturday night.
24-10 over, or 24-9, I think it was.
Yeah,
over. I didn't watch it, so I don't know. I actively chose not to watch Auburn football last Saturday night. That should tell you everything that you need to know. So Gus Malzahn's tenure begins with a win over Mike Leach and ends with a win over Mike Leach. Yep. As Malzahn was fired the next day with a $20+ million buyout. A lot of folks out there saying, why would Auburn make that move? He's a winning coach. He's the only guy who's beaten Alabama and Nick Saban multiple times in the last 8 years. Just that's the 30,000-foot view. I get it. When you dig into the weeds a lot deeper for an Auburn fan and you start understanding he never beat LSU, Alabama, or Georgia on the road in 8 years. He had about a 33% winning percentage against those three teams, which are the three that Auburn fans measure themselves against on a yearly basis. That he was 2 games above 500 in the last 7 years against Power 5 conference teams. And he was actually under 500 by 4 games against Power 5 conference teams with a 500 or better record over the last 7 years. So there's a lot underneath the surface. That overall record for Gus was padded by a bunch of mediocre teams and cupcake wins. And he said as much at a press conference a week or so ago when he said, after the Bama game, when he said, our goal is 6-4 now because we've just lost our third game, where it was our A&M game. He said 6-4. It was after the A&M game, actually. He said, our goal is now 6-4. And that's a solid season under normal circumstances. That, from everything I've been told, that was the nail in the coffin. That solid season comment, okay, this is not the direction the program needs to go. You also have to understand recruiting If you just look at recruiting rankings, man, Auburn's top 10, top 15 every year recruiting rankings. Fine. That's good for 6th in the SEC, number one. Yeah. Number two, when you really dig on it, today was National Signing Day. We're recording this on December the 16th. Today was early National Signing Day. Today was the first day in 3 years Auburn has signed a high school offensive lineman. And it was a 3-star recruit.
Yeah.
So,
which don't get me wrong, I feel like in the recruiting rankings, offensive linemen are undervalued, but normally a 4 or 3-star is about normal for an offensive lineman, unless you're just murdering people.
But the point being, you have to win in the trenches in the SEC, especially with his offense.
Yeah,
we kept missing out on recruit after recruit, and it showed because the offensive line for the last 2.5 years has been abysmal.
A lot of Band-Aids, a lot of grad transfers, a lot of Band-Aids.
So that is kind of the quick overview of why Gus was let go at Auburn this past Sunday. So since then, what has happened? We mentioned Oregon and Mario Cristobal. Why do we mention that? Well, the insiders everywhere, and if you listen to certain people who are connected to the program, Mario Cristobal was the target and has been the main target for Auburn.
Still kind of is.
And it's going to get wild, folks.
Yeah.
But Mario Cristobal is the number one target for Auburn. When I said earlier in the pregame previews that Washington getting COVID put Oregon in, that also threw a wrench into the Auburn coaching hire. Mm-hmm. Because from everything I'm understanding, Auburn and Cristobal were pretty much ready to get married by Monday afternoon. Yeah. And then Oregon made the Pac-12 title game on a technicality. Yeah. And that put everything there on hold, but has also given Oregon time to go back to Phil Knight, who's their super booster, founder of Nike, to find some extra money. Yep. Now, what you have to remember about Oregon, he is criminally underpaid. He's the 11th highest paid coach in the Pac-12. He only makes about $3 million a year. Okay?
That's your conference championship coach from last season.
Just won the Rose Bowl.
Just won the Rose Bowl.
Remember, Auburn paid Gus Malzahn $7 million a year after losing the SEC championship game.
He signed that he more got that contract because he beat Georgia and Alabama in 15 days.
Yeah. So you're talking about a $4 million delta right off the bat of what potential earnings just easily could be, because whoever Auburn hires next, unless they're bringing up a Billy Napier or something, if they're hiring a Power 5 coach, they're going to put him at close to the same level Malzahn's made.
You're looking at 5 to 6 mil.
I'd say 7 if it's Cristobal. I've heard 7.1 was the offer to Cristobal.
If it's Cristobal and they're looking to outbid Oregon, you're looking at 7.
Yeah. Now, the question then goes, if you're Cristobal, why wouldn't you take the extra $4 million? The answer isn't, well, Nick Saban and Kirby Smart are in the same conference. That's not the answer, because there's a school of thought from people who know that Mario Cristobal wants to compete in the SEC. He's not afraid of recruiting, not afraid of butting heads with these guys, wants to compete against the best.
Yep.
That's kind of well known.
Yep.
The problem you have, one, Auburn's notorious for having meddling boosters. Okay.
No.
Yeah. You don't have that at Oregon. Phil Knight just cuts checks and stays the hell out of the way.
Yep.
And while he may not pay as much, what Phil Knight in Oregon do is invest in facilities. And their facilities are far and away better than what Auburn has right now. Like, I know Auburn's perennially top 20 and people think it's big school. Folks, the facilities are maybe 10th of the conference in the SEC right now.
Yeah, they're about 15 years behind.
Yeah, they're well behind in the conference as far as like actual facilities for players and things like that go.
Yeah.
So there needs to be a big infrastructure investment there. So there's pause that I could see happening there for Cristobal. Now that Oregon today came out that they have a board of trustees meeting happening tomorrow to talk about head coach contract and things like that. This could just be a formality that they have to approve it before they can do anything. The other catch that you have with Oregon right now, Drew, I don't know if you know this, their entire university is on a freeze for raises. So
really,
yes. So and now you bring in a political concern of how well does a coach raise of several $1 million go over during a pandemic in the state of Oregon?
Just about as good as getting an email from Auburn today asking for money.
Yeah, where college football is just not as seriously taken out there. You have people who are fans and want to win.
Yeah.
But it is not life or death in the state of Oregon.
No.
It is in the state of Alabama. Okay. And that's not me talking. There's somebody I keep in contact with he lives in Eugene. Mm-hmm. Tells me these things. He's born and raised in Alabama, lives in Eugene. Huh. I hear these things from people who know. He's like, dude, it's a different animal out here. Okay. It's not as, and I thought the same thing when I was in Michigan. It's just, you got the Michigan Wolverines, Michigan State, people love them. It was not taken as seriously as it is down south. It's just not. It's different. Ohio State's the only exception I've ever seen to that. So, you have that aspect. Now to circle back to what's going on at Auburn. Well, what's stopping you from just cutting a check, getting Mario Cristobal? I mentioned the boosters and the power play on the back end, folks. And this is where it gets interesting. You have one set of boosters who want to move forward, get new blood into Auburn, really go after Saban and want somebody aggressive and try to go win the conference and kind of see the long-term forward. You have another set of boosters who are very old boy, good old boy network and like what they like. And that group is pushing for Kevin Steele, the current interim head coach for Auburn and defensive coordinator, to be pushed up to the head coaching position. Kevin Steele was once the head coach for Baylor, where he went 9-36 in the league.
1-31 in the conference.
Okay. He's been a great defensive coordinator for Auburn for the last 4 years. Mm-hmm. He has turned around that defense because it was not good before he got here. And all credit to him. That group, and largely older boosters and older alumni, they want kind of a hard-nosed defensive guy back in there, and it's what they know. And Kevin Steele's a nice guy. He's a good old boy, kind of nice guy. He's also 62, 63 years old. Auburn's never hired a head coach that old. It's always been somebody in their 40s or maybe 50 years old at the most that they brought in for that job. So it would be very much against tradition for Auburn to make that play. And then today, on top of all of that, Twitter trends with hashtag Stop Steele to get the message out from Auburn fans who are furious about the idea of Kevin Steele even being near the head coach's office. And it's all these fans have all said, we love him as the defensive coordinator. Keep him as the defensive coordinator if we can. He's just not the guy for the head coaching job.
Yeah.
So you now have this whole weird dynamic where the fan base is furious because we really don't have an idea. We all think it's coming down to Mario Cristobal or Kevin Steele, and there's no in between if Cristobal falls through, because that's the information that's out there right now. Nobody really wants Steele in the fan base. And I think from people I've talked to today, that message has gotten through loud and clear to some of the big boys who are cutting checks. And that has made them take pause. The Auburn administration has stepped in and started a search committee with people who really don't watch college football on it. That makes no sense to me. I love Bo Jackson. Bo Jackson doesn't watch college football.
He doesn't care.
Doesn't care. He cares about Auburn.
If Auburn's winning, he'll be there.
Yeah, he cares about. He cares about. Bo doesn't care. But he flat out tells you he does not watch football.
No.
Why is that guy on your search committee? Sorry, digression.
No. Yeah,
and I love him. I love Bo, but it makes no sense.
He's the ambassador for Auburn University and always will be.
Him and Chuck, and that should be. It's fine.
Yep.
So that's kind of this whole messy, gross situation. It's a message board war. Source after source coming out. Drew talks to people on the back end. I've talked to people on the back end. The best I can surmise right now, and Drew, I'll let you come in. I know I've been yakking, but I'm trying to give the color in the backside.
You're fine.
The best that I can surmise is that Mario Cristobal is not out of the picture yet, even with this meeting for Oregon tomorrow. I think there's a chance Oregon's board makes a statement, because it's a little more political out there, that they are not going to give a raise. I think that's a possibility. And just tries to get out in front of it. Would they do that before the Pac-12 title game? Maybe not. Maybe they say, hey, we're authorizing you to go negotiate. That's also a possibility. Okay. When it comes to the contract.
Mm-hmm.
Word was Cristobal and Oregon have been talking about a new contract for quite a while. And then all this COVID stuff hit and raises, freeze, and everything happened at the same time. My understanding is also Mario Cristobal's wife, I think her family is from Columbus, Georgia, which is 30 minutes from Auburn.
I believe you're correct.
So that could play a factor into it.
Beautiful town. Lovely town.
Oh, God. Just threw up my mouth a little bit.
I'm more trying to entice her to come back home.
Oh, God.
Read between the lines.
She's beautiful, but the rest of it.
The first lady of Oregon football, and hopefully the first lady of Auburn football.
Good recruiting job, Mario.
Yes, that's how you know a good salesman.
So
what I've always been told.
Originally I thought we would know something by Tuesday before signing day.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Oregon stuff with getting into the title game happened. And now I don't think we're going to hear anything until Saturday or Sunday at the earliest, because the Friday night game for Oregon happens. You're going to hear something Saturday or Sunday. If it was Kevin Steele, you would know by now. That's my thought, because signing day happened today. He wouldn't have had to tell players, I still don't know who the coach is going to be, anything like that. You could have had that in stone. Makes it a lot easier. And Auburn actually did a pretty good job today of holding on to some key players at signing day without having a head coach.
Yeah, not any huge names, but held on to their a couple of big ones. I think they.
I was kind of surprised. I was kind of surprised. I also heard somebody who's in the know today tell me this feels like 2008 when Gene Chizik came out of nowhere.
No.
And that we might be an off the radar name that nobody's heard of in this as well, or thought of. Because I've seen scuttlebutt that maybe Auburn's having back channel talks with Lane Kiffin. I've seen scuttlebutt that we've had back channel talks with Steve Sarkisian, the offensive coordinator at Bama. I'd rather have Sarkisian than Kiffin, but that's just me. Where are you on this? What have you heard lately compared to what I know? We've been in contact most of the day, but that's kind of the overall 30,000 foot view.
Mm-hmm.
It's wild because the narrative, folks, changes every 2 seconds. And I'm not kidding you. There is a warring set of boosters against another warring set of boosters and power players at the school, just going against each other, trying to pretty much win the hearts of Auburn fandom to get people on board with a hire.
Let me take you back to 1998. And someone, a good buddy of mine, pointed this out to me today. And he's absolutely right. In 1998, just before the Louisiana Tech game, actually the day before the Louisiana Tech game, Terry Bowden was informed that he would not be retained at the end of the season. He said, well, what if I go out and we do this and this and this? And they said, well, we would revisit that, but that's not going to happen. So we're just letting you know that you're going to be let go. And he said, well, fine then, deuces. Literally the day before a football game. At that time, Bill Oliver was named the interim head coach.
That game the next day. Yeah.
Mm-hmm, and coached the rest of the season. The story goes that he really wanted the job and played well in a very failed Auburn season.
They fought hard the rest of that year.
Played Georgia really tough.
Played Bama tough.
Yeah, played Bama really tough. Had the lead against Alabama into the third quarter, I believe.
They fought hard.
And the players love Brother Oliver. At that, just after that, it looked like Brother Oliver was just going to get the job. There was a lot of a grassroots movement, I guess you could say, that he and Brother Oliver even says to this day, he was, I was offered the job and I accepted it. And then all of a sudden there wasn't an offer. I'll let you guess what happened, because Tommy Tupperville swooped in after saying that he wouldn't leave Oxford in a pine box, and the Auburn boosters had a pine box waiting to escort him to Auburn. So that's what this situation feels like, where a grassroots movement, this time of half of the boosters, half of the boosters want the quote unquote, and I say this with all due respect, the devil that they know, yep, as opposed to the devil that they don't. Meanwhile, there's a group of boosters that wants new blood. I sent you the tweet out earlier today. Auburn has hired the assistant off of someone's staff since Tupperville. Tupperville was the last blood. You can trace Auburn football back to that 1998 hire, mm-hmm, since this moment. Just for a Game of Thrones reference, Gus Malzahn was begat by Gene Chizik, who was Gus was his offensive coordinator. Gene Chizik was Tommy Tupperville's defensive coordinator, and then Tommy Tupperville was Tommy Tupperville. It ends the line of succession ends there, and so I see there's a thought process that Kevin Steele should begat Gus Malzahn directly, which hasn't happened yet in the Auburn lineage. But and that grassroots community thinks of Kevin Steele as a Pat Dye 2.0, hard-nosed coach of the old system, has been around is an SEC guy, coached with Nick Saban, Dabo Swinney. His resume is fantastic.
Yep.
But it's because he's 62 years old. I think if Auburn goes that route, you're looking at doing this in about 3 or 4 years anyway. You're back where you are. But yeah, no, the move was made because of roster management by Gus, where people started noticing things were going downhill, even though it was, again, like you said, top 10 classes, or pulling in players from here or there, and the wins and everything like that. People just noticed that followed the program and pay attention, that Auburn was starting to trail back. So I thought it was a year early. Not to say that Gus would fix things in that year, but I thought we would be here in December of 21 instead of December of 20.
I think they pulled the trigger now, because if you give him that odd year shot with Georgia and Bama at home,
yeah, you
might put yourself in a situation where you didn't have to talk about contract extension or keeping him around longer. That was a consideration, I think.
I think so too. But it also helps out the new coach.
Yeah.
You get Georgia and Alabama at home. You only have to go to LSU and to Texas A&M,
and to Penn State.
And to Penn State as well. But that one you're not going to be judged on as much. But it makes it a little bit easier. The end of your season ends a little bit easier.
You can win some friends real early if you go on the road and beat Penn State in the first couple of weeks of the season.
Absolutely.
That's not something we do, is go on the road and win lately against good teams.
The trigger has been pulled, and now the question is, the question for me really is, who wins out? And that's the question that nobody can really give, or the answer that nobody can really give me, because while 98, it was a grassroots thing. And then, for lack of a better term, Bobby Louder came in and said, I'm the adult in the room. I'm going to make the call. I don't care what has happened before. Auburn, that was the last time Auburn had some decent leadership.
For all his faults, Bobby Louder actually did some decent things.
He really did. But now you've got about 3 different factions of booster at Auburn. And one likes this guy, one likes that guy, and then everybody else is kind of neutral. and can be swayed one way or the other. So
here's where I'm at.
Okay.
And you and I talked about this a little bit on the phone. For the first time in my lifetime, Auburn is in a head coaching search where they're the prettiest girl on the block.
Yep.
Never happened before. It's always been some other bigger school has been out there at the same time. So this is the year to strike as far as trying to make the hire that you really want. You're going to get pick of the litter here, at least make the runs at who you want to run at.
Yep.
Don't forget, the first option may not always be the best one.
Correct.
Dan Mullen was option number 3 for Florida last year, or a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. I think Auburn's making the run at Mario Cristobal. I don't think that's over. I don't think he ends up at Auburn. I also don't think it's going to be Kevin Steele. Okay. I think today's backlash from the fans has made it kind of a Greg Schiano Tennessee situation where there's just a little too much out there where you're asking for a lot of crap if you bring in Kevin Steele. And it's nothing against Kevin Steele. Again, he's a great guy. He's been a great ambassador for Auburn. He's been a hell of a defensive coordinator. He's just not the guy to be the head coach for Auburn University. And that's the feeling of a lot of fans out there. I'd say the vast majority of fans out there with this hashtag going. And my understanding is people high heard the message loud and clear today.
Okay.
I think you're going to see some regroup, and you're going to find the middle ground kind of name that everybody can be. Okay, that's fine. And here's the deal. If Auburn the power players at Auburn have been smart enough to float these middle tier names initially as well, just being on a list, then I think we would have a lot of people relaxed because you haven't heard Billy Napier's name on a list.
Yeah.
You know, you haven't heard inside the program a Luke Fickell, who's my personal choice. I would love to get Luke Fickell out of Cincinnati, but quite frankly, our boosters aren't smart enough to watch football outside of the SEC. So the names you're hearing are, SEC connections. Luke Fickell, Billy Elliott, assistant out at Clemson, which would be well against our MO because we don't hire assistants to be the head coach. We typically go for a smaller school head coach. I'm not afraid against that shot, but I think other people are. Although Napier, I'd put ahead of him just because he's shown me what he can do. You're hearing Hugh Freeze's name pop around, although, like you said, Birmingham will probably veto that. And I think there's a cultural issue at Auburn that would not allow Hugh Freeze to come in. And you're starting to see Steve Sarkisian's name come up, Lane Kiffin's name come up. I think Sarkisian, if he's smart, waits it out in Tuscaloosa because he could probably be the next head coach at Alabama.
Yeah.
The guy's already coached at Washington. He's coached at USC, been in the NFL. Yeah, he had his drinking problems at USC that cost him that job, but it's not like he doesn't know how to run a program. And I don't know if you recognize, Sark's only 46.
Yeah, no, he's young. He's got plenty of time left.
I would actually, if Cristobal turned me down, that's the first call I would make is to Sarkisian. Because I don't need training wheels on him.
No, you don't. You just need to shut down the bars a little bit early.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. But at the same time, there's been nothing in his life in the last 4 or 5 years that says that's regressed.
So
going on.
The one thing that I'll put out there, because this is my concern, I'm happy that Oregon and USC are playing on Friday night.
Yeah.
Because that at least gives you a couple of hours start over this. Because I have a feeling that Texas A&M is not going to need a scoreboard this weekend. They're going to put up a number or do all that they can to put up a number to try and influence their playoff chances. However, I'm not going to be looking at their sideline. I'm going to be watching Tennessee's because I'm not sure if Pruitt can make it to the podium fast enough before they fire him. There's been a lot of strife and a lot of at the beginning of the week, I got a lot of applause and saying that, well, at least Auburn's got some guts, and I wish Tennessee did. And now they're kind of not saying that as much. But I think if you remove the Hugh Freeze effect, which I would be blown away if Tennessee
I wouldn't
allowed to do that.
Phil Fulmer's their AD. Nothing would shock me.
Nothing would shock me with Phil, but I also know how he wouldn't mind keeping Birmingham on his side in a pinch.
Well, he's allowed to go back in the state of Alabama now. He's not getting subpoenaed anymore. So.
Exactly. Which is why if the subpoena was still on, no, he doesn't care. But he wouldn't mind having Birmingham on his side and helping him out. So I would be a little bit surprised if he did pull the trigger and still got Hugh. And even after that, I'd be surprised if it really went through. So I say that because if you remove Hugh Freeze from their list, Billy Napier's the call. So if Mario says no, and if the boosters that are grassrootsing this really have heard the fans and realize that, don't get me wrong, they're the big time money people and they're the ones that count probably the most. But you also need to sell tickets. Just because you buy a suite does not mean that you fill up that stadium.
Not at all. It's
fill up that stadium.
Tickets are $100 a week. That's $8 million in just tickets every week. Yep. $9 million.
So because I know I was starting to look into tickets, just for later down the road. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. If that's what you feel about your product, I'm not doing that. So Billy Napier's name would come off the board very quickly if Tennessee pulls that trigger. I feel like I feel it could be quicker than Auburn's projected start time, because I really do believe that if Oregon's not in that Pac-12 championship game, Tuesday morning we're having a press conference. I firmly believe that.
Here's the only thing I say about Napier, and I say maybe against it. There is a school of thought here in Austin that he may be holding out for Tom Herman next year to flame out.
Yeah.
But Napier only makes...
I don't know how he would say no to Tennessee and to Auburn also.
Yeah, I mean, he only makes $880,000 right now. It's not like he's making tons and tons and tons in the scheme of coaching.
Yeah.
So...
now, a name that I will also throw out there for you that no one has said, but it's somebody that I think might get a look. Not saying that he would get the job. Look at Tony Elliott at Clemson, assistant head coach.
That's who I've been hearing too, potentially. Yeah.
Offensive coordinator, running backs coach. That's a very back channel name, along with Sark. And the couple of people that are mentioning Lane, I think that's more of a Jimmy Sexton pull. Who's a
makes sense.
Agent. It doesn't make much sense to me. I mean, the only line of logic is, well, he did it to Tennessee. Yeah, but that was for USC. That's not in the same division.
Yeah. Sark and Elliott, I could see.
Mm-hmm.
Elliott, I could absolutely see. Yeah. I still think Sark's a little bit above that just because he does have that Power 5 coaching experience. People forget what he inherited at Washington. It was jack what he had at Washington beforehand. He made them respectable before
he laid the foundation for everything that they are now.
Yeah. USC obviously was there for a year and a half. Did okay. Wasn't fantastic, but he also followed Lane, right? Yeah. I think he was he after Lane? Yeah, he was after Lane.
I believe you're right.
Yeah, he was well after Lane, actually.
Oh.
I think. I got to look it up. Sark was the head coach after all that mess with when USC had like 3 coaches in the span of the same season with Lane and Orgeron and all that mess. Sark took over. And then he was also, I think, had some personal issues that led to the alcoholism and things like that. So, there's those skeletons, but at the same time, he's still 46, 47, and I could see that happening. That's the back channel. conversation that I know I've heard too, is that could be the one that ends up popping up.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be shocked if it's Cristobal at this point. I think there's just too much out there, and he's going to decide, screw this, I'm going to stay at Oregon. It's just not worth the headache to deal with Auburn.
Mm-hmm.
You got to have the right kind of person to be at Auburn. You need somebody who wants to compete day in and day out, number one, because you're arguably in the toughest Power 5 job in the country. High expectations, and you're sandwiched between Georgia and Alabama.
Yeah.
You also have boosters who don't know how to mind their own damn business. And if they did, they could learn from what Alabama does, which is cut the check, shut the hell up.
Yeah. No, and that's always been Auburn's problem of the boosters wanting to run the asylum. And it's why Kevin Steele is a name that was going as hard as it was until I'd say about 4 this afternoon.
Yeah.
Which I'm never an Auburn Twitter fan as far as some of the things that people put out there. But maybe in this situation, it was the right thing, even though I really didn't like the hashtag so much. I thought it was very witty, but maybe it did what it was supposed to do and make Auburn kind of sit back. I really do believe that the search committee was formed to buy Auburn time. Notice the timing of when it came out after Oregon was put into the Pac-12 championship game. So that bought time. Oh, we were doing our search when really, and I totally agree with you, there are about 3 people on that committee that I'm looking at to make that decision, and none of them includes the athletic director, which
is sad because he's probably the one person I would trust to make the hire.
Yeah. I trust even if he smothered a live baby on television, I'd still trust Quentin Riggins. I think he has Auburn's best interest at heart, which is encouraging to me that he's on the committee. But it's going to be, as long as there is no news before Friday. If Auburn can make it to Friday at noon without calling a press conference, which I think they're going to.
Well, there's no rush now.
Yeah, there's no rush now. If a press conference were called tomorrow, I think I would be livid. But we'll find out what happens there. But I would start to pay real attention if I'm an Auburn fan. I would start to pay real attention right when I woke up on Saturday. I would look for, if it's going to be Cristobal, I look for an announcement probably Saturday afternoon with maybe a press conference on Sunday.
Yeah, if it's anybody else, you'll look for an announcement Sunday because they could be playing entitled games on Saturday.
So. Exactly. I think that if it's Cristobal, begin your 48 to 72 hour watch of Auburn football, because again, if it just comes back where, Napier says, nah, I'm going to wait for Texas, or he's already been hired by Tennessee before you can get an answer from Mario, because that's a legit concern. Then if Tony Elliott says, no, I really want to wait for whatever, I don't see that happening. I don't see it getting past Tony Elliott if he is convened with. Which I think would be a good move. It might get back to Kevin Steele to where everybody just goes, well, he's the best available that we feel comfortable with. Which at that point, it is what it is. I think the pushback came from fans going, he can't be the second best option that we have out there.
If you told me we got rejected by 4 or 5 people, then fine.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I get it. It does happen, just where it's just not the right time.
Yeah.
But I don't see it getting past Tony Elliott. I think that if they do convene with him, I think he's a great coach. I think he's got a great mind and could bring some new life in to the program. So, but from everything that I've heard, there is some legit, sincere interest from Mario, and Auburn's got no problem signing a check that could be out of Oregon. So
now, like I said, everything I heard was Mario had a $7.1 million a year offer sitting in front of him from Auburn. And if I know anything about Oregon and you know anything about their history, they're not paying coaches that kind of money. No. So it depends on what does he value. Is it facilities? Knowing that it's tougher to recruit to Oregon, even though you got all these facilities and the flashy jerseys and everything. It's tough. You do not have a natural recruiting area in Oregon versus what you have at Auburn. Or do you want the money and the recruiting areas? But I was also told if he took the job at Auburn, he would get a ton of say in the football only facility being built and what's going on with that,
which would be a huge deal.
Yeah. Or do you want to jump in the snake pit that is the SEC and deal with the headache that is Auburn?
I don't think that is. I mean, don't get me wrong. Just jumping into the SEC and dealing with Auburn and what that entails is bad enough. I don't think that part concerns him. The SEC part. I think that he wants to be in the SEC. I think he wants to be among the elite, if you want to call it that. But yeah, if I had to make a call today as I sit here, I think it is Mario Cristobal.
Okay. I hope you're right.
I hope I'm right because I think I actually think Billy Napier is the right move. But if you put the two that are right here in front of Auburn right now, as much as I like Kevin Steele, for the long term of the program, I take Mario Cristobal.
Yeah, I still think Luke Fickle's the right move. But we're not going there, so it's not even something to consider because our idiot boosters are stupid and don't watch anything outside of the South. So out of what's out there right now, yes, I'd rather have Cristobal. I know we're getting an elite recruiter. I just, for some reason, have this feeling it's not going to be him. And I don't think it's going to be Steele.
Okay.
I think you're looking potentially at Elliott, potentially at Sarkisian, somewhere in that range. And we'll see.
Yeah. Who knows what we're doing next Tuesday or Wednesday?
Welcome to the life of an Auburn fan, everybody. It's a blast sometimes. Anyway, we know that was long-winded. If you shut out on us earlier and you stuck with us, awesome. We appreciate you. Hopefully that gave you some insight into what the hell is going on and just the craziness and warring factions, because I don't know of any other school that has this kind of warring factions on the back end. Alabama did at one point.
Mm-hmm.
But they've gotten on the same page, especially when they went and got Saban, and they've gotten out of the way, and you see what's happened. You're seeing the same thing at Georgia. They've all gotten on the same page. They got out of the way. They're exploding into a power. Up north, you really don't see this that much. Out west, you don't see this that much. This is, and this isn't a unique 1 year thing for Auburn. This has been going on as long as I can freaking remember. All the way back
at 98.
At least a Pat Dye. A Pat Dye. It's the last time I remember Auburn pulling all in the same direction was Pat Dye. So
well, and even then, the first choice was Vince Dooley.
Yeah,
Vince Dooley had an offer on the table the night before the Sugar Bowl, where they won the national title, to come back to Auburn. And after they won the national title, it was just assumed, oh, okay, he put a bookmark. He finished the chapter. Time for him to come back home, just like Bear did. And then at the 11th hour, while they were driving back, this is a true story, while they were driving back to Athens on the bus, on the plane, Derek Dooley is sitting next to Vince crying because he doesn't want to go to Auburn. And that's what changed Vince's mind.
Wow. I've never heard that story.
Yeah. That's what changed, because he did not want to leave because Derek didn't want to leave Athens. Vince realized, I've got to uproot my family if I do this and go back to Auburn, and he decided not to do it. Therefore, because, and this is also a true story, Pat Dye had already put in feelers in Athens to take over for Vince when he took the Auburn job.
Wow. Huh.
And then when it came out that Vince decided to stay in Athens, Pat called the feelers in Auburn and said, I want to come back to the SEC. Here are my credentials. Here's what I've done. And Auburn said, well, that's what we got.
Interesting. Well, that's how we'll wrap up this week, folks. We appreciate you joining us. Thanks for sticking around. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you caught that and what the hell we were talking about. It's going to be wild the next few days. Enjoy championship week. Stay safe, everybody. If you're traveling for Christmas coming up, obviously be safe out on the roads, or cover mask, do all that good stuff. Keep everybody safe. I mean, I'm doing the ill-advised thing and traveling myself, but hopefully, I traveled last week for work, and everybody's taking their protocols. Make sure you take them seriously. It is what you have to do right now. Be safe out there. For Drew McCracken, I'm Brad Tillery. Thanks so much for joining us, folks. Talk to you soon.